Okay, so this is the second half of the video to go over the rest of the tabs that I have. This next section's on teaching and co-teaching, and so I did not print stuff for the UDL. I have a ton of information on that from my graduate work, and if we have that from the handout from the class, I've misplaced it someplace, so I've got to dig it out of my other paperwork. So anyhow, I have co-teaching strategies, which was passed out in class. And then I pulled some information on collaborating with special educators in our classroom. That's an area we sort of have some challenges with, and specifically bridging sort of the gap between special education and science. In high school, I have information on cultural competency, which was passed out in the class. Information on Bloom's taxonomy, which was passed out in the class. Oh, these are in the wrong spot. Okay, so this is, I'll have to remark this. This is the observation tools. So it was on Bloom's taxonomy and other things. This is actually in the wrong section, so I'll end up moving this. Multiple intelligences. This is some information that was passed out in class and information that I've looked up on multiple intelligences. And I have a resource for figuring learning strategies for the different intelligences. Okay, so the next one is on classroom management, teaching strategies. I have an article on the link between effective classroom management and academic achievement. I have some alternate classroom management strategies. Here's the county policy on classroom management. Here's some strategies on handling different behaviors, common behaviors. There's a large PowerPoint. I printed off a few pieces that I thought were most important and most useful, and then I put the link in my table of contents, which I'll maintain maintain electronically. There's several articles I pulled on dealing with sort of common behavioral issues, dealing with confrontational students, effective strategies for high school behaviors. Here's classroom management styles specifically for an inquiry-based classroom, specifically for a flipped classroom. Here's some management strategies specifically for a science teacher, high school science teacher, dealing with disruptive students. And here's some discipline tips that I pulled. And it too deals with specific types of behavioral problems that we have. And I have some strategies from Skillful Teacher 2 that I'll also be adding to this later. This was an interesting article on alternative policies for dealing with tardies. Our policy is rather cumbersome and lots of students don't do that. I'll be moving next year, then the next year or two I'll be moving my classroom to more of a flipped model, and so this is some information on flipping classes and best practices and resources I have linked for flipping classroom, physics classroom. This was a strategy on Think, Pair, Share. This was passed out in class. Setting up an Emoto classroom, which we received in class. Graphic organizers, which we received in class. Annotating readings. Note-taking. This was the presentation that I gave on note-taking and teaching note-taking to students. I also included the the template for Cornell notes and stuff, which I missed in our original handout to the class, but they're online and I had included those links. Here's information on cooperative learning, homework tips. The ones I pull are primarily for dealing with high school students and high school science students. Here's the information I presented on online lessons. This was the handout I had given in class. Okay, the next session is on managing duties and stress. This was the document on keeping your files organized. Then I had pulled some strategies on managing paperwork. A couple of different articles on that. And then the last thing I have in my binder is some physics and physical science related materials that I thought were helpful. This was an alternate, I don't know, quiz activity. I think we actually got this in class, but I couldn't link it up with what we actually got it for, so I stuck it in here. This was the paper that I had done on teaching the nuclear physics, working with the online samples. And then this was a document I had pulled from American Physics Teachers Association, which has some really interesting information on sort of community building and literacy, and sort of making sure we're prepared as teachers and students, kind of best practices for interactions within the classroom, qualifications that we should have, content knowledge that we should have. This was primarily a document on sort of best practices for the colleges in preparing physics teachers, but it had a lot of really good information, so I pulled it and put it in here for myself and for anybody who I'm mentoring in that physics program. And then I had on the last page are just some things that I noticed as I was going through. I've got this first one, the GT policies, but some things that I noticed as I was going through that I still needed to kind of put in as I had time. That's it.